we have to set it equals to 0. And now we are going to use the completing the squares. Completing the squares. So if we're using that method, that means we have to take this to this side. That means we want to make here 0. So we will add and we will add. And the quadratic is of nature x, ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. So this is like a, b, c. When we are completing the square, we need a b. So our b is a 2. And in the process of completing squares, we divide it by 2. And we get 1, and we square it, and that will give us 1. And we add it on both sides to make the left-hand side a perfect trinomial. Okay, so that's the process. So we're going to add 1 here, add 1 here, and we're going to add 1 here. Okay, and when we do that, equals to 16. Now this side has become a perfect trinomial in such a way that with a repeated 1, if we have x plus 1 times x plus 1, it will give back this again. So it's a perfect trinomial. And then this can be rewritten as x plus 1 all squared equals to 16. Okay, we are almost there. Now we want it to be in a vertex form. So in the vertex form, we have to bring this one back here. Okay, so in the vertex form, it's just minus 16 equals to 0. And then we want if we want the x-intercept. That means we have to solve for x. Okay, but before then, let's talk about the vert. So this is the vertex form. The vertex point this is the x component and this is the y component. But we are always switching the x components because so here the point have to be -1, but the y component we don't switch it the way it is. So that's the point that we get. Now for us to find our x-intercept, that means we want to solve for x. So we need to get rid of this squared and this 1 here. So 2, we have 2 work to do. So how do we get rid of the square? Opposite of a square is what? Square root.
Oh, yeah.
So we have to take a square root here. And we have to take a square root here. Okay? So when we take a square root, the square goes away with a square root. Okay? So now we got our x plus 1 is equals to plus or minus. We are putting plus or minus to take care of the 2 solutions that we're supposed to get. Okay? And finally, we need to get rid of this. So how do we get rid of plus 1? How do we make plus 1 0? That's a good attempt, but if you have plus 1 and you divide it by 1, it's still 1. You want to make it 0, so what do? You subtract. So you're going to subtract. So we're going to subtract here 1, and we're going to repeat the same thing here. Okay? So now we get this one here. So, and square root of 16 is what? 4. So that means we got plus or minus 4 minus 1. Okay. When if this is positive, 4 minus 1 is what? And when you consider the negative, negative 4 minus 1 is what?
Negative 5.
Negative 5. So these are the x-intercepts. Okay? Is it long?
Yes.
Okay, but as we do, we will get more understanding. So if everything is okay, we are going to do the second one. The second one, we are working together, but you will be doing much talking, okay? Okay, so now let's go. So what's the first thing that we do?
We make this equal 0.
Awesome. What's the next?
We add. No, we subtract 1 from both sides.
We subtract 1 from both sides. Good. Okay.
And then we found a b.
Okay, so what is a b?
Negative 4. And we divided by 2.
Divided by 2. And that gives you what?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. Good. And what do we do with it?
We add it.
You miss one step. You square it.
Oh, yes.
Because you want to, the process is called completing the squares. So you will square it. And then we get what?
4.
Good. And what do we do with this 4?
We add it to the power.
We add it to both sides.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we do that, what do we do? What do we get? Okay, so here negative 1 plus 4 will give us what?
Negative 3.
Look at it carefully. Negative 1 plus 4. You owe somebody $1, you get $4. You pay that person of how many debts?
3.
So it's positive 3, okay? All right, so now what do you see? What is the next?
We solve it.
Okay, so how do we solve it? So you see here, the left-hand side has become what? A perfect trinomial. So how do we solve this one? Normally this 4 here, this particular 4 here, we can write it as this. I want to give you the clue that happened. The lefts always become perfect trinomial. But you see, this 4 here is the same as that. So this negative 2 is the one that normally become the repeated. This one here. Okay? The b divided by 2 is always that number that become the repeated. Okay? No, that will help. So okay, so what's the next?
Then you square it.
Yeah, okay, we square it. Better. We square it to get the zeros. Now let's find the vertex form first.
Okay.
So the vertex form, what do we do?
We make it equal 0?
Yeah, good. That means, yeah, we make it equal to 0. That means we are bringing this back here, okay? So when we bring it, what do we get?
X minus 2 squared plus 3 equals 0.
Okay. Okay. So this is a vertex form, okay? Now we need the vertex point. What will be the vertex point?
1 negative. Oh, 2 negative 2.
Yeah, we always switch it. So it's negative, so you have to be what?
Positive.
Positive 2 and negative 3. So this is a point, okay?
Okay.
Now we want to solve for the x-intercepts. So what do we do? So this one, we pick it right from here, okay? Okay. And now you want to solve for x. That means you need to get rid of this and this. So you have 2 tasks that you have to do. So how are we going to go about this? How do you get rid of the square? This 2.
Square root.
Okay, so we take a square root here. Are we supposed to repeat it here?
Yes.
Okay. Because we don't want to cause any changes. Okay, and when we do that, it goes away. Alright. and then we put plus or minus 2 here. Do you know the reason why we put plus and minus here?
No.
Because we need 2 answers.
Okay.
Because it's a quadratic, and that take care of that. What's the next step?
You subtract 2 from the opposite.
Okay. You have to be careful with your inverse. Inverse operation always is opposite. So we have to what? Add. Okay. So we add 2 here, and we add 2 here. Okay. So this turn into 0, and then we get plus or minus square root of plus 2. And then we split it to get our 2 solutions. Okay. Split it. So we get square root of what? 3 plus 2. Or we get negative square root of 3 plus 2. So these are the 2 solutions. Okay. Solution is the same name for what? X-intercepts. Alright. As I did mention, we can also use a graphing calculator or Desmos to do that. Okay. So do you want us to try that one too? Okay. So for us to use a Desmos, y
Equals x squared minus 4x.
okay equals x squared. Okay. X squared.
Minus 4x.
Minus 4x
Plus 1.
plus 1. Okay, good. So here we see that, remember we got this point. That's the vertex point. Okay, is that what we got from that? Yeah, and the x-intercept, this is the one that we get square root of 3. So the one with the minus will give us this. The square root of 3 minus 2 will give us this, and the square root of 3 plus 2 will give us this. But it's decimal, so you don't see. So these are the 2 options that you can able to solve it. But in the vertex form, kind of is a little bit technical. If you have this, yeah, you can write it though, because if I have the point, I can able to write it. Let me show you how we can able to do it. Okay, so let's go back. Yeah, so if somebody tells me that this is a vertex point, if they give it a vertex point to be, what was the vertex point? 2, negative 3. Okay, you know that the vertex point, it can be written as this, plus or minus. Some people use h, plus or minus k. This is a general formula, okay? And we know that this is the x component. This here, under the formula, there's a negative here. So since we got positive, when it comes here, it's going to be negative. So, and then here, as it is, the way it is, so this is negative, so negative 3. So if you have the points, if you graph it and you don't want to do all this work, you can get your vertex form, and then you can solve it from there.